You're still on mute, Ediri. Ediri, you're still on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amal. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amal. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, moms, dads, everyone joining us from around the world. Thank you very much. We're so happy that you are here this afternoon. And today, we'll be taking a look at a very interesting topic. The question is, why did we choose this topic? Why? That's the question. We've interacted with several parents. We always interact with parents every now and then to feel the pulse of parents and to know the burning issues of parents. And what kept coming up was this concern for values, that we are fast losing our value system, that the children that we have those days, teenagers, young adults, there's this sense of entitlement that we see increasing. And you know, those little values that we used to cherish so much in the past, such as respect, kindness, contentment, you know, little values like that, persistence, we see them going away and we're wondering, how did we get here? What can we do about it? How can we correct this as parents? And some of the burning questions we will discuss today are, how do we actually teach our children values? I'll give a typical example of something that happens every day that we see in our everyday life. A teacher walks into that room, and then it's not even a good morning or any form of greeting, and then walks up to a particular grown-up that he or she is interested in, wants to talk to, and starts speaking to that person. And everybody thinks it's normal. You see it as normal. No courtesy. In those days, when we refuse to greet grown-ups, you know what will happen to you when you get home? You see that mama's look on your mother's face, that you want to disgrace me in public. You will see yourself when you get home. You will receive the discipline that you deserve. But what's happening today? So how do we actually teach those basic and important values? Where do we start? Are there guiding principles? And if there are guiding principles, what are these principles? Is it practicable? Is it something we can easily achieve? And you know, with all the busyness of life, the race against time, we are so busy as parents here and there. We are contending with a lot. We're contending with influence from social media. We're contending with peer pressure on our children. And we have our own busyness. We parents, we are all so busy. What can a parent do? So we will discuss all these questions and many more when our special guest comes up. And so to take us into that main session, we have a guest speaker with us. She's very special to us. And I say this because she has been here before. If you were here in our November webinar, where we discussed building emotional connection with your children, then you would understand what I'm talking about. That session was insightful. And so our parents, we got great feedback, amazing feedback after the session. Our parents said, we want her back. We want Mrs. Adebayo to come back. And so parents, we have brought Mrs. Adebayo back. Mrs. Adebayo is a woman of many parts. Apart from being a lawyer with 30 years postgraduate experience, she's an auctioneer, an accomplished realtor, and author of many books. She's a certified marriage and family life coach. Given her passion for the advancement of women and as a way of giving back, Mrs. Adebayo runs a partly virtual mentoring group for women. where she engages with over 150 women weekly. Her latest book, Woman to Woman, is a rich compendium of practical and relatable experiences common to women. She has books, some of her books in quicker time. To get these books, we have the information there on the screen. Awesome books. You can easily get those books and add them to your wealth of knowledge. Moms and dads, I'm going to give us this tip, because if you're here in November, you will know what I'm talking about. This tip: go and get your writing materials, moms and dads. Your journals, your phones, anything you can use to take notes, because you will need them. You will need to take notes when she's speaking. Moms and dads, join me as we welcome Mrs. Bisi Adebayo. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you, Ma, for joining us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Ma. We are so glad that you're here. Okay, I think your mic is on.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Ma.
Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. Super moms, you are indeed very, very super. It takes only super moms and super dads to juggle parenting with the challenges that we have in our world today. So this afternoon, I'm saying a very special welcome to every single one of you. I would like to say a big thank you to Ediri and her team, the team of Super Moms. Thanks for having me again. Thank you for bringing me back. I was with you all in November and I had a good time. I had a good time myself, and I'm looking forward to having a very lovely time with you all this afternoon. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for the gap you're feeling, because what you're doing may seem ordinary. Oh, she organizes webinars. But in this particular sphere of influence, what you're doing is that you're building generations, because when children are well brought up, the society at large has a lot to gain from that. And then, I mean, families, communities become wholesome. So what you're doing is unquantifiable, and I want to encourage you to do more. Don't be discouraged. The results will show, the difference will be clear years down the line. I mean, as a mom of 3 adults and a teenager, I know what I'm saying. It may appear like, I mean, why are you just being so particular about, you know, bringing up wholesome children and all that? Some may think it is not too important, because they feel, look, children will grow up and they will become whatever they are destined to be. It doesn't work that way. It is not automatic. A lot of effort needs to go into it, and that's what you are doing. So thank you so very much. Personally, I'm appreciating you. I'm appreciating your team. I also want to congratulate every parent, every mom, every dad that made it here this afternoon. Time is valuable. You've chosen to spend your time doing something that would impact the lives of your children positively, and by extension your own life too, because when your children turn out right, I mean, without it doesn't it's not rocket science. I mean, to assume that your own life too, by extension, will be a very good one, and your old age will be peaceful and rewarding, and I'm sure we all desire that. So today we're going to be talking about how to teach our children values, and Ediri in her introduction said quite a few things that I would like to also reiterate. She made mention of the fact that around here now, around us now, we see a lot of things going on. We see children exhibit signs of, you know, rudeness, lawlessness. I mean, some don't even greet, some won't carry out a simple instruction that has been given. They just, do whatever they feel like doing whenever they feel like doing it. And it's like it's getting worse by the day. And we're all wondering, how did we get here? Just how did we get here? And when we think back to what our own parents did, I mean, yes, we do complain about some things they didn't do right, but I think they did a lot right. And what they did right was instilling values in us. And so the responsibility to pass this on to the next generation, to our own children, is ours. And it's a heavy, heavy responsibility that we must not shirk in carrying out. And so when it comes to teaching our children values, it's not something that will happen automatically. It's something that we need to be intentional about. We need to be deliberate about it. But I'd like to start from the fact that you really won't be able to give what you don't have. So I would like the parents here today to pause and ask, what are my own values? What are your values? What values do you live by? What are the principles that help you decide what is right and wrong, and how you would, rather act in various situations? So it's what we have that we're going to be able to pass on. And so, I'm pointing 4 fingers at we parents, pointing one at myself too. What exactly are your own values? Because values are not really, they're not things you teach in a very, very formal manner. It's something you live out for them to see. So having said that to us, I'll go straight to my slides by defining what values are. What are values? Values are the principles that help us decide what is right and wrong and how to act in various situations. That's what the Cambridge Dictionary says. And that's what values are. And apart from that, our value is the sum of our values. That's something that a man called Joe Burton said. And I agree absolutely with him, that when you place a human being somewhere, what you see, the sum total, the worth of that individual is the sum total of his or her values. They may not be written on the forehead, but it's just a question of time. By the time the person starts relating, by the time the person starts doing stuff, you would realize that it's either that person, the value of that person is enhanced by the things he does and the things he says and the way he is, or the value diminishes. So you can have a very influential person, quote and unquote, well-dressed, looking prosperous, looking like he's worth $1 million. And then you spend a day with that individual and you realize, wow, if they dash him out, I won't collect. That can be the case at times. Or then maybe you see someone that isn't looking so prosperous, that isn't looking so influential, and then you spend a day or two with that individual and observe the person's values, and you are saying to yourself, this guy is worth $1 billion. So values are the ideas and standards of behavior held by people in the society. They are the guiding principles of personal conduct. Now, bringing this down to our children, the question is that how can we build values in these children? We must first take into cognizance the fact that children need guidance all of the time. You see, when they're born into the world, they're delivered, and that's why, children don't grow on trees. You don't just find them by the wayside, except for when they are abandoned, and that isn't normal. A child is given to a family to nurture and to grow. And so that child, right from the minute he or she is born, is guided through life by the parents or the caregivers in situations in which the parents are not available. So you don't just leave children to grow. and to mature all by themselves without this guidance. And once in a while, I don't know if it has ever happened to you, I come across people at times and the impression I have is, oh, this person was just left to grow up. Like when a child is just left to himself. There was no guidance, there was no molding, and it shows. Because you see, around us in the society, there are too many distractions that can lead children astray when there isn't guidance. And children are like sponges. They absorb all that they see or hear. They soak up their environment. So you don't need to sit them down to say, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Yes, of course, we will have to do that. But before you speak a word, before you say a sentence, the children are observing you. They are ready to imitate you. They are ready to do what you do and to say the things that you say. So that is who they are. They soak up, they absorb all that they see you do or that they hear you say. So the way we live our own lives should also be a form of guidance to the children as they grow. So why are we even talking about values? And we're going to be laying some foundations now. Why are we talking about values? Why are they important? Number one, values would help a child build his or her character, because values form the very core of their being, and it becomes the foundation for their moral beliefs. So what they believe in, what they are convinced of, the convictions they have about life and the way life should be lived is usually founded on the values that they have been taught. So when you teach them nothing, then their character will be nothing to write home about. Then it means they don't have a strong foundation. They don't know who they are, and they become just anything as a result of that. Secondly, values are important because values help them tell right from wrong. They know. So can you move the slide to the next one, please? It says it helps them tell right from wrong. When they do something wrong and no one corrects them, then they believe it is perfectly normal to do it. And that's how habits get formed. So when a child, picks a pencil and throws it at maybe the nanny or a fellow classmate, and nobody says that is wrong, nobody tells that child, don't ever do that again, that is not acceptable. The next time, that child will throw a pencil or that or that eraser, maybe at the mom, maybe at the dad, and then one day the child is bold enough to land a slap on the mom's face. When you don't tell them right, when you don't help them to know what is right from what is wrong, then they form lousy habits because they have no sense of what is right or what is wrong, and as far as they are concerned, everything is acceptable. Number three, it changes their perception of the world. It creates for them a healthy perception of the world. When they can tell right from wrong, then they'll be able to determine the good from the bad. And their world will be affected by this ability. So they will know when to say no and when to say yes. They will know when to stay put and when to take to their heels. They will have a healthy perception of the world in which they live in, and they'll be able to take the right decisions as occasion demands. Another reason why it's important to teach them values is because it determines their adult behavior. So permit me to quote from the Bible now. I know some of us may be Muslims, but I know there will be the equivalent of this even in the Quran or other holy books. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. That is a very, very popular verse in the good book. The values they are taught today will determine how they behave as adults. So when you bring them up when they are young, when you are particular about the things they do, the values they inculcate in them, it's like setting them on the tracks of life. If you've seen a train move before, it moves on tracks that have been laid out. And that's why it's rare. It doesn't happen all the time for a train to get derailed, except something really, really major and maybe technical has happened. The train stays on its track. And a train that is not on the track is not able to move. It's just been manufactured, but it's going nowhere. And that's the way it is with children that don't have values imbibed in them. They are going nowhere in life. It's until you set them on that track that they can move, gain speed, and accomplish. Now, values are also important because they counter bad influence from peers. So as children grow, they leave the home, they leave the protective guards of the home. They go to school, they make friends, they mix with other people from different backgrounds, those that were taught values and those that were not taught values, those that grew on the streets and those that, don't give a hoot about what other people believe in. And that is when influence becomes a reality, in the sense that they have the tendency to be influenced by the beliefs and the value system of those people. So when you don't have a concrete value system built into them, when they've not been inculcated with the right values, then that is when they sway. That is when they become negatively influenced and they do whatever other people tell them to do. And this happens. That's why you find parents who say, look, I taught this child all that he should know. I did all that I felt was important for him to be able to imbibe these values. But I'm surprised they got to school and they got mixed up with the wrong crowd. And then you are wondering, how did he get into drugs? How did he become this rude? It's because some other influence, it's called peer influence, peer pressure, came, and the pressure you had given at home was not strong enough to counter that peer pressure. But when children grow up with strong moral foundations as values, they become more secure in themselves. They are able to say no. They don't feel the need to belong. They are able to say, I don't have to do this. I don't have to be rude. I don't have to dress funny to belong to the crowd, because they have a healthy self-esteem in themselves and they are able to take the right decisions. Now, again, it helps them cope with difficult situations, because you see, in life, whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, tough times, quote and unquote, will come. Situations that we didn't bargain for, that these children didn't bargain for, may come. And that is why in the world today, there's so much of depression with adults as well as with young people. And this is because of the inability to cope, the inability to stand strong in the face of the shocks and, the negatives that life throws at them at times. So teaching them to know good from bad helps them to take better decisions that steer them away from such desperate situations. And then it also gives them the courage to cope when they are faced with difficult situations. When they don't have values, they become like a rudderless ship, a vessel that is going nowhere, that is being tossed up and down. They don't have a sense of control. They don't have a sense of stability, and it's very easy for them to fall prey to depression. We hear of suicides and all that. A lot of things are going on in the lives of young people today, and so many of these things can be traced to the lack of values. Again, it boosts self-confidence. When a child is able to take a decision to do the right thing, to go by the right values, that child feels good about himself or herself, and it boosts the self-confidence. It makes him realize that yes, I can decide to do good. I can influence my life in a particular direction, and then it gives them a sense of being in charge, and they become confident individuals. Another reason why values are important is because it helps them to think about others. So when you teach them responsibility early, it helps them realize that the world does not revolve around them and that they have a duty to others. And I keep saying it's one of the best known cures for the malady called entitlement mentality. When they have values, they know that, okay, I may feel like doing this, but I am not allowed to because it is not right. So they become selfless. They are not self-absorbed and, self-centered people who just want to have their way regardless of whose ox is God. They become very, very conscious of the fact that they owe other people and that they cannot just exercise their rights without taking into consideration how those things they do, the things they do would affect other people. So I'm sure you'd all agree with me that, those reasons are very, very important. Important enough for us to decide, come what may, I'm going to inculcate the right values in my children. And so how are values shaped? Because we're saying, okay, so we'll teach them values. Are you going to open up their brains and pour the values into their brains? No, it doesn't work that way. And values are inculcated through a combination of so many things. At times it goes beyond what you as an individual is saying to them or what you are modeling to them. There are other factors that determine how values are shaped in the lives of our children. And the number one point that I would like to discuss is culture. We all know what culture is. It shapes our values. And that's why you have cultural values. And when you say cultural values, you're talking about values that are shared by people within an entire community, maybe a tribe, an association. And I'll use the Yoruba culture as an example so we can understand this. By the way, I'm Yoruba, so it's easy for me to use my culture. So you notice that the Yoruba culture is heavy on respect as a value. I know maybe some other cultures are, but growing up as a Yoruba girl, culture dictated the fact that you must give respect. And this is shown in the way we greet within the Yoruba culture. Until you go on your knees or prostrate and it's like you are licking the dust, so to speak, you have not shown enough respect. So the value is such that it compels you to show respect, especially to those who are older than you. It's also noticeable in the way, we address individuals. So you are using plural pronouns for a particular individual. So one person said something, and you are saying they said, as if it was a multitude, as if more than one person spoke. That is the way you show respect. My son was sent a screenshot of his conversation with his sister and was complaining about the fact that she said show tigbo, and he felt he should say share tigbo, and he was complaining that, look, I was born in the 90s, not in 2000. You should show me some respect. That's the way it is in the Yoruba culture. And again, the way we are taught to address elders, they say to us, don't look elders in the face. You can't look at them. You have to look elsewhere while you are speaking to them, or you look down. And so that is why at times there are cultural clashes. So a child has been taught not to look at an adult that is speaking with, maybe travels out of the country, and they think he's not honest because he's not making eye contact. So values are shaped by the cultures in which we're raised. We need to take that into consideration. And of course, because that not everything about our culture is right, it is also our responsibility to sieve through culture. To sieve through culture and to determine this is not right. This is okay. So you don't just assume that you are your children's culture values rather are being shaped when you are within a culture that has negative values already imbibed as a culture. I'm not saying respect is a bad value. What I'm just trying to say is that there may be within some cultures some values that are negative. And when we're within those cultures, we must be conscious of pointing them out and guiding our children right. Okay, thank you. I spent a little time on that. Then again, your faith would also shape your culture. For example, to a Muslim person, polygamy may be no big deal because their faith, the faith, I think endorses it. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I'm not a Muslim, but I know that Muslims are permitted to have more than one wife. So polygamy to a Muslim person is not a big deal. So a child's value, a child that grows up within maybe a family or a community where that is the faith that is being practiced, sees it as no big deal. So you can't judge that child based on your own values, maybe as a Christian who believes that monogamy is the way marriages should be practiced. You also see that in family planning, even within the Christian faith. Some sects don't believe in family planning. They believe it is wrong. So a child that grows up within that would have within such an environment, would have his values, shaped or maybe affected, colored by those things. So faith is also something that, builds, that affects our value system. And that's why, these days we hear people say things like, did you use your church mind, trying to say, oh, were you thinking like a church person when you did this or that? So all these things affect our value propositions. Then the environment where we're raising our children. Where is this person? Did this person grow up? What is the environment? What is the permissible? What is accepted within an environment may also give a child the impression that, oh, this is normal, this is okay, and values may be shaped by those things. So, for example, I live in an estate where, noise is, it's a bit odd to just for everywhere to be noisy. And very recently, a church, around the corner from my house, a church was started. And so at odd times, the noise level, I'm just wondering, this is not proper. This is not fair. I feel it. I sense it. I say it. Because it doesn't, that activity does not correlate with what is expected of that environment. And then, so yesterday I went for a function in a church and there was a lot of noise. And then it just occurred to me that, oh, the people next door, how are they coping with this noise? I'm part of the people creating that noise, so to speak. And it was in the morning, And then I realized that the entire environment itself was noisy. Nobody would have noticed that there was even any noise coming from that church. So for that environment, it was okay. It didn't stick out like something abnormal. But in another environment, it would appear odd. That also happens maybe when you travel abroad at times and you realize that, for those who are Christians, especially if you're a Yoruba Christian person attending, the Orthodox churches, you dress gorgeously to church on Sunday. When you travel out of the country in some parts of the world, and they go to church casually dressed, very casually dressed, they're in jeans, and you are wondering, you won't do that in Nigeria, but it is acceptable within that environment. So our values are also shaped by the things we see in an environment and what has been accepted as the standard in those places. Then, of course, this is very, very important, your friends. And I'm sure we all heard this as children, show me your friends, and I will, tell you who you are. Values are shaped by the company that we keep. our circle and scope of influence will be would have would have an effect on our children. So the friends they keep and the friends you keep would also determine the values that they imbibe along the way. So it's important that you are careful about who their friends are, the people they spend time with, and the company that they keep. Okay, yes, family background. So I want to be a bit careful about this, because when you say family background, people just assume that, oh, when you are from a wealthy or very comfortable background, then your values are positive. No. A comfortable background does not automatically translate to good moral values. And a background that isn't so comfortable, that isn't so, that has no wealth, lining, that has no, that doesn't have substantial wealth, does not also mean that the values are right. There's this song I love so much, The Coat of Many Colors. Said, even though we had no money, but I was as rich as I could be. That was a value that had been built into that child. That yes, even though she was in a coat of many colors, sewed from rags that had been given out to them, she said she felt as rich as she could be. So it's not a function of what you have or what you don't have. It's just a function of the values that the family have. And usually they pass this on from generation to generation. So, and that's why people would say, oh, those days, if you're marrying into a family, they're asking about the background, they're asking about who they are, they want to know their values. Do they steal? Have they been convicted of, one crime or the other? They are usually concerned about who they are, the way they are viewed within the society, and the values that they espouse. Then, of course, we can't underplay the role of the media, the social media, when it comes to the projection of values. In fact, to a very large extent, they shape the values that societies, imbibe and begin to feel comfortable with. So they project the values, and without understanding it, it just seeps in. We just soak it in. And the things we used to frown out all of a sudden become acceptable. So you need to be careful. Social media is a very, very key influencer, and it influences the values of our children. So somebody sent something funny to my phone some months ago about how beauty queens contested maybe in the 1960s and the way they contest these days, talking about their outfits and all that. And there's such a radical difference. And then somebody said, oh, this was the way women dressed before the devil became a fashion designer. Because now it's like, nudity is being promoted. And then when you go on social media and you see what celebrities post for their birthdays, they go naked, so to speak. So there's so much of that going on. And because the media is showcasing it, it is almost becoming normal. So you go for an event, people are dressed up and boobs are hanging out and everybody is looking straight like it is normal. We're beginning to imbibe things that are negative, becoming acceptable. The way, quote and unquote, corruption is like the norm. As terrible as it is, nobody asks questions. How did he make the money? How come he's been given this position of honor? What has he done? Nobody is asking questions. Once there's money to be brandished about, honor automatically is attached to that individual by some people. So we need to be careful that our children are also not carried away by these things. And that means being very intentional and being very particular about the things they are exposed to. in the media. Okay, and then of course the schools. Apart from the family, the schools are the most influential when it comes to, values being shaped, being inculcated into our children. And so you find schools, they have school anthems, children recite these things. I mean, I used to love my, when my children, yes, okay, one of them is still in secondary school, but right from their primary school, the school anthem, I mean, was so inspirational. And right from when they were small, I mean, they bought into it. And then they had a recitation, and there was this particular line they would recite every day, that others may, but I cannot. Meaning that, look, I'm a child that stands out. I don't go with the crowd. I don't do the wrong things because everybody is doing them. So we need to be conscious of what the schools are teaching them. What is the school rewarding? So, I mean, they go to school for maybe a fun fair or something, and it's a child that has danced most provocatively that is winning the award for best dancer. That says something about the value of the school. That says something about what they believe in. What do they reward? What do they reward? Some schools, they tell you their values, integrity, but they help students with exams. Do you send your child to those schools? If your child is in that school, I mean, that value is already being taught and being imbibed. It's already being learned, and it's been imbibed into that child that I can cheat my way through life. So we need to be very conscious about this. Okay, so what are the values that we're supposed to, I mean, we have a whole lot. Ediri mentioned quite a few. I've listed some here, but it's not exhaustive. So it is good that you teach your children integrity. Let them know that it pays to have integrity. I'll share a story with us. Some years back, a long time ago, our children were still very young then. We had planned that we were going to go on, travel on a trip that particular summer. And then we took a look at things and we realized, look, it wasn't going to make sense spending all that money on a trip. So we got them together and we said to them, we're not traveling anymore this year, but we'd have fun, we'd create fun for everyone at home, blah, blah, blah. We'll take time off work. We just told them, like, even though we're going nowhere, we're still going to have fun. But some weeks down the line, we called them together again and we said, we're going to travel. And they were like, what happened? What happened? And we told them what happened. What actually happened was that a client of ours forgot 76 million or thereabout with us. We did a transaction, and the transaction had been concluded. But this man, very wealthy individual, but it's not an individual is forgetting 70-something million naira with you. Then it means, that person has much, much more. The man could not remember. We had to convince him. We had to show him proof. He kept saying, look, we're all sorted. Nothing is outstanding. He forgot totally. And we had to explain to him to let him realize, you still have this much with us. Tell us the accounts to send it into. And the guy was so impressed. He gave us a huge chunk. And then, of course, we could go on that trip. So we told the children the story. And we made them realize, look, it pays to have integrity. That even though that money was forgotten, even though the guy did not know about it, it would have been terrible of us to keep quiet and sit on money that isn't ours, or to spend it. So you teach them integrity by showing integrity and by letting them in and taking advantage of those opportunities to teach them the importance of those values. Teach them respect for all. Right from when our children were small, we always told them, you can never, ever, ever be rude to the housemaid. It was never accepted, and they knew it. So you have to be deliberate about letting them realize that whoever they come across in life deserves respect. I remember there was a particular vacation, long vacation. They were still young and in school then. And I discovered we had a house help that was also learning a trade. So she would go out, she would get up in the morning, go to the shop, and come back in the evening and do housework and all that. But I discovered that the children would do their cooking and leave the plates in the sink. Because, they knew they had to clean up, but their thinking was, as long as we clean up before mommy comes, nothing's spoiled. So they will pile up everything, and just when they know I'm about, getting back home, they clean up. But then I discovered that because she gets home before me, once she gets home, she sees the plates in the sink and she cleans up. And the day I discovered, I called them and I said to them, it is not fair. You are on holidays. All you do is play. We don't allow them go for summer lessons. We feel holiday time is time to relax and to, just unwind. So I said to them, look, you are home all day. She has gone to work. She has exerted energy where she's coming from. And then she comes back. Instead of relaxing, she's washing up the plates you have used. And then you do all the cooking, all your experiments. Did you leave anything for her? And then it became the norm that they would not only clean up before she got back, they would keep her portion of everything they made, every food they experimented with, and they would say, okay, the both portion has been kept aside, maybe in the oven for her. So they need to be taught this. Don't just assume that they know how to treat people. Next slide, please. You need to teach them selflessness and generosity. I remember there was a time, I noticed that my older son, anytime he goes anywhere, he's trying to park or, he always would want to give something to the guys helping him to park, or you know how it is in Lagos, even if you don't need help, they will claim they are helping you just so that, they can earn something. And there was this day we went somewhere, the guy didn't need to help us. I just said, look, there's parking space, just park. And the guy came, just trying to be helpful. I just greeted the guy and I walked away because I was saying to myself, you've not done anything. And then my son got to where I was and said, Mommy, I wanted to ask if you had some change. I said, what for? He said, wanted to give the guy something. I said, it's not necessary. I said, no, don't worry, I've given him what I have. I said, how much? He said, 10 pounds. That thing pained me. I shouted because I did the calculation mentally. But he said, that was all I had. That was what I had on me. He just felt the need to give. I'm not saying we should teach them to, be careless with money, but let them know that it's good to be generous. They should have generous hearts and be selfless when they're dealing with other people. They should have empathy. I will teach them to put themselves in other people's shoes. I have a son. When he gets back, when he comes home, he tells me over and over again that he thinks it is wrong to stay in the car and blare the horn for someone else to come and open the gates. That's what he says. And the day we discussed it, I said to him, we taught you all these things. It's like you are knowing it better than us, because I will blare my horn for somebody to open the gate for me. But when he comes in, when he's going out, he arranges himself in such a way that he's able to get back in without calling on somebody. Even though we have one or two people who consider it their responsibility to check the gate and get and answer. To check the gate and get the gate. But he thinks, I'm putting myself in their shoes. Can somebody just... So that is empathy. And you should encourage it when you see it in your children. When it looks like it's lacking, be intentional about teaching it. Tell them, put yourself in other people's shoes and try walking a mile in those shoes. Teach them resilience and hard work. I remember then, I mean, if I got back from work and they've not done the things they're supposed to do, I will insist. In fact, I remember those days I would want to go and wake them. You can't sleep until you've done what you've done. But I mean, my husband is a healthy balance to my own, to my parenting style. So he won't allow me do that. But I'm always like, look, do what you're supposed to do. Do what is expected of you. Imbibe that in them. Let them see you, live it out. It was, my daughter had cause to record a few things, to say some things about me that she recorded. And she said, I taught her the value of hard work. So it works better when they see it in you. It will be easy for them to replicate. Gratitude is key. That gratitude is, I'm sorry, I think there's a bit of noise from here. I'm very sorry about that. Okay, so I was saying that the gratitude and ingratitude and entitlement mentality, they are cousins. In fact, they are twins. They're a set of, twins. Because when a child is ungrateful, then that child is capable of so many other, quote and unquote, unwholesome acts. So gratitude is something we need to do. When you give them something, insist they say thank you. Insist they say thank you. It's important. Right from when they are children, they should know that once something is given to you, you express gratitude for it. And then teach them to love. And the way to teach them to love is to love them unconditionally. When you love, it will be easy for them to love. They will live it out. They will be able to give it because they have it. Contentment is also key. Contentment is very, very key. It's a child that doesn't have this value would struggle to be like the Joneses, will do everything possible, everything possible, either acceptable or otherwise, to make it, to keep up with appearances. Contentment is key. Use every opportunity to let your children know that they are running their own races. They're not running other people's races. You don't compare. In fact, we do it a lot. We tell our children, hey, this is what we can afford. And we tell them what we are even affording is by way of sacrifice. The popular thing we say to them is, look, we're not politicians. We're not politicians. We're not people working in sectors where people are able to play games. You know what I mean? Look, we're hardworking people, and these are whatever we have. There are things we've worked for, and we're content with those things. Otherwise, they will put themselves under pressure, unreasonable pressure, to belong and to afford things that, they really would not be able to afford ordinarily. Teach them courage. Courage to say the truth at all times. Courage to stand for what is right. And when they do this, stand by them. I remember a particular time when our son was much younger and it was time to go to school, and my husband noticed he wasn't excited about going. He was, not eager to go to school. He looked bothered, and he asked him what happened, and he discovered that the day before he had seen a colleague doing something that I think they said they shouldn't come to school with money, and he saw a lot of money with a classmate and reported to the teacher, and so it was like there was a gang up, and he was afraid of being bullied or whatever. His dad followed him to school, and he told him, look, you did the right thing. I'm proud of the fact that you did this. And he went to school with him just as a show of support, and to also maybe let the authorities know and all that. So when they display courage, support them. Teach them to be humble. Teach them to be humble. Pride goes before a fall. So if you notice that it's like they're being haughty and feeling like, okay, they are privileged and other people should wait hands and feet on them, please put them right immediately. Humility is a virtue, and it is important that it is taught and that it is imbibed. Then accountability. Accountability is key. And the best way to teach this is to also show accountability. And I'm sure you are wondering, how can you be accountable to your children? You can be. You can, at times, to the level, to the extent that they can understand, it is okay to be vulnerable with them. And to also let them know that, look, I'm like, my husband would always tell the children, look, I'm accountable to your mom. There's always someone that can call me to order. There's someone that I owe an explanation to, so that they don't think that they can be a law unto themselves, that they can do whatever they feel like doing. And so, I mean, there was a time we decided, look, we don't want anybody here keeping late night. And we set a particular time, so time everybody should be back home. We kept to that timing. And if we're not going to be home by that time, we called the children, no. So that's accountable. We won't have situations now that people complain of, men or maybe the women just, taking off, going anywhere. The wife does not know where the husband is. The husband does not know where the wife is. And unruly life, so to speak. Teach them accountability. Teach them prudence. Oh, this one is key. It's, financial literacy. It is good for them to learn this as children. I taught my my youngest daughter this at a particular time when I realized that whenever we got into a supermarket, she would pick everything. She would want to buy the whole shop. So one day I took her and a friend of hers out, and I gave them, I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 each. Gave them shopping baskets and told them to go shopping. When we got into the mall on the way in, they saw ice cream. They said they wanted ice cream. I said they should they should budget to have it from the money I was going to give them. So while they were in the shops, they were looking at the prices of every item they were picking. I was shocked. We spent over 1 hour because they'll pick one item, say, no, I can't afford it. Okay, so this one is almost like this, but it is cheaper. They were prudent with the way they spent that money. And I was saying to myself, okay, so it is when it is my money that you know how to pick everything. But because that money was said to be theirs, they were careful. They made sure they had enough change to buy ice cream on the way out. So it is good. There was the only time I told my older children, I said, for every certain amount that you save, I will add this amount to it. So they were fired up. And they started saving. And they come to me for investment advice now. I have 3 adults. So it's important that we teach them prudence. Otherwise, as a friend of mine says, may it not be their portion to walk donkey years in Lagos and go back home with one leg of a pair of socks. It is important that we teach them that, and early too, so that they can be financially independent early in life. Responsibility, that is key. Make them responsible for something. When our own kids were younger, we had some parts of the house allocated to individuals. So somebody was responsible for the walkway. And we said that walkway, there must be no dirt on it. Everything must be in place. Somebody was responsible for the lawn. You must wet it, somebody was responsible for the living room. That nothing must be out of place. And it was exciting then because everybody took responsibility, took personal interest in how their areas were faring. And they even came up with ideas. Let us do this, let us do that. Can I put this there? It's good for them to, at times you may allow them keep pets, so they are responsible to care for the pet, to look after it, to feed it, to clean it up. It breeds a sense of responsibility, and it is key. Modesty cannot be overemphasized. When modesty is lost, then what you see is shamelessness. So it is important that we teach our children not to be loud, not to be unnecessarily aggressive. I mean, to be decent in their dressing, in the way they speak, the way they approach people. Please, it is important that we teach them modesty. Do we have more values to inculcate? Oh, godliness, that is key. That is key. Please, whatever your faith is, pass it on. Let them know that there is a higher authority, and that, I mean, there's someone who rewards good and punishes evil. It is important that they have a sense of godliness, that they know that there is a God, and they don't live their lives thinking that they would not render accounts one day. Service is key. Let your children see you serve your community. Serve. There was a time we went to check on our children, and we followed them to church on Sunday. And then for most churches, they will tell you, if you're worshiping in the church for the very first time, you should stand up and all that. So we got up, and of course other people got up too. But then because the pastor knew us, he just said, "Oh, that's Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo." And of course, who knows Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo? They don't know us. And then he said, "Angela and Titi's parents," and the whole church started clapping. I was impressed. And after the service, it was like I became a film star by virtue of the fact that my children were serving in that church. And after the service, parents came to me and they were asking us, telling us how well-mannered the children are, asking how we were able to inculcate them with the values that they had. And I felt good because they got into that church. They were also serving. They see us serve in the church we attend. So they know the right thing to do when you get to a place is to render your service in some way. Be useful in one way or the other. So please encourage them. Encourage them to serve. In those days, we had the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and all those things. Yes, we don't have them anymore, but if there's a soup kitchen, let them volunteer. If there is a community service, anything being put together, maybe in the church you attend or the mosque you attend, encourage them to be of service. It is a culture that a value they should imbibe and that they should hold on to for life. Now, so quickly we'll go through the practical ways. Ediri, how many more minutes do I have, please?
You have like 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'll quickly run through this in 10 minutes. Number one, lead by example. Lead by example, walk the talk. Don't just, tell them this is the right thing to do. Let them see you live it out. Engage and communicate with them. Share your stories with them. Let them know how having the right values, how it has saved you from maybe financial loss or maybe even your health and all that. Discuss with them and let them know that it pays to live by the values that you've been imbibed with. Utilize your teachable moments, and teachable moments will always occur. You will see a situation, maybe while we are watching a movie, maybe while, you are hearing a story, maybe something somebody said that will remind you of something. It may be, for example, my daughter recently went to the salon and she made this hairstyle and she got one. I was like, this hairstyle is funny. I don't think your school will allow it. And I told her that when she said she wanted to do that particular style. By the next day, when it was time to go to school, I saw she was feeling uncomfortable. And when I had to take her back to the salon, they loosened the hair, got it done again. And then I used that as a teachable moment. I said to her, I told you this style was not going to work out. but you wanted to have your way. One, maybe you had seen it on another student and you liked it and you wanted it, but it's not everything you see others do that is good for you. So you did it, but it was a waste of time, a waste of money, and all that. So utilize practical situations, real life situations, to teach them the values that you want them to have. Appreciate and reward them. When they do well, please say it. I remembered when I was a child, when I was in school and I had issues with mathematics, I would have done well, excellently well in other subjects. And then I get home and all my parents would point out is the fact that I didn't do well in maths. And that got me really, at a point in time I was going to be rebellious. I promised myself that I was going to fail every other subject so that they will know that it can be worse. But then I couldn't carry that out. But I felt really, really bad. So when they put in an effort and we don't appreciate it, they notice. So give them a little reward and thumbs up, and they will be fired up to do more. Yes, let them watch particular movies. If you know that there's a particular movie that teaches, some of these values that you think will be beneficial to them, let them watch it. Let them analyze world events with them and teach them lessons. We used the incident of the American election to teach our children some hard facts about life. So whatever is going on at every point in time, utilize, but know at the back of your mind that what you are doing is you're instilling values in them, and they won't forget. Years down the line, they will remind you of the things you said to them. And please, when they need to be disciplined, please discipline them. Discipline them. A child that is left to himself, that is not disciplined, that is not put right, is a disaster waiting to happen. There's this particular scripture in the Bible that I like, that I love so much. I think it's in Proverbs 23 or Proverbs 25. I think it's Proverbs 23 verse 25 or 23 verse 28. It says that, like a city that is broken down and without walls, leaving it unprotected, is a man who has no self-control. He sets himself up for trouble. So when you leave people, when there's no control, that person becomes like a city without walls. Anything goes. Anything can come in, anything can go out. Vulnerable, no protection. So discipline is a way of putting children on track. It's a way of also instilling values in them. Next slide, please. Okay, are we there? I think you skipped. Are you sure you didn't skip a slide? Okay, after discipline, the next slide, please. Okay, love them, verbalize it, and demonstrate it. You see, when you are a child that doesn't feel loved, is not able to take any other training that is being given. When a child is not loved, that child knows it. That child feels it. And that child will be disgruntled. So that child will find it difficult to trust you, to take your words for it, and to actually really believe that what you are teaching is for his or her own benefit. So love is the foundation from which values can be instilled in children. When a child knows he's loved, he's ready to take everything. The child is ready. It looks up to you, honors you, adores you, takes your word as the gospel truth. So in instilling values in them, please love them. And don't say you love them because you are paying their school fees. That it's not automatic. Love them, verbalize it, tell them you love them. Tell them I love you. and demonstrate it. Demonstrate it by the sacrifices you make for them, and let them know that you are making these sacrifices because of the love you have for them. Other things you teach them, they will take it in easily. They will take it in easily and they will imbibe those values. Then don't send them to schools that don't share your own values. So don't just send them to a school because it's a happening school. Send them to schools that share your values and will, further build on the foundation you have laid for them at home. Then also keep a circle of friends that share your own values. It doesn't make sense when you're teaching your children something and then they move with a circle of friends that you have endorsed that is also doing something totally different. So of course you can't compel your friends to share all your values, but the key ones, please, the key ones, don't move around, don't introduce your children to a circle of friends that you know are living contrary to the values that you believe in. You leave those children confused because they are wondering, Tade's dad is doing it, and Tade's dad is my father's friend. So automatically they feel it is acceptable because they believe you approve of that individual. Engage them in extracurricular activities. It gives them the opportunities to demonstrate these values and to live them out. So please get them involved. Expose them to books that portray good values. That is important. And let them face the consequences of their poor choices. So don't rescue them all the time. When they've done something detrimental, let them feel the consequences. To be a learning curve for them. Don't always run to their rescue to get them out of trouble. Celebrate good behavior. I've said that before. And then be patient when you are teaching these values because these children are children after all. Sorry for the tautology. They are children. And I mean, if they knew it, then you wouldn't have been saddled with the responsibility of teaching those things. So yes, they may stumble, they may fail, they may disappoint you, but please patiently reiterate and live out these values. Someday they will remember all the things you are saying and they would make the right choices in life. And finally, pray for them. Pray for them. It's okay to teach them all you know to teach them. You should also pray that the blessings of the Lord will rest upon them, that they will come across people in life who will build on the foundations that you are laying, and that at the end of the day they will turn out right. And I want you to know that prayer works. There's so much that you can do. Do your bit and then call upon the God of heaven and earth to prosper your efforts and to ensure that they turn out right and they give you joy at the end of the day. Thank you very much. I'll rest my case here, and if there's time for some questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Oh. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mrs. Adebayo. Thank you. And once again, you have given us something to take back and run. Yes, someone's clapping. Stella. Thank you. Yeah, we are clapping. Thank you. We appreciate it. So it's time for questions and answers. Yes. You can unmute yourself and say thank you to Mrs. Adebayo. She has done it again.
We are grateful. This was super.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So time for questions and answers. Let's give our parents time to ask questions. Parents, let's ask questions. If you want to unmute to ask your questions, yes, I can see one hand up. You can also type your question. Okay. Okay. Stella, please unmute and ask your question. Thank you. Go ahead, please. Stella.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning.
We can
Hello,
hear you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Stella Ogumakiwa. This is my first time on this program, and I really love it.
Thank you.
Thanks to my pastor, Mrs. Audubajolu, that invites me. Now my question is, due to this COVID-19, and the part of the country where all our daughters were given laptops. Because they can't go to school in person, they are giving laptop to work online. And you know what's going on in the whole world now? All children, all the internet, the social media. And for us here, we are unable to stay with them 24 hours. My question is that how can we as a parent, me as a parent, do just to make sure these children they are not visiting the wrong websites or join the bad group on the internet? Because here we have 24/7 internet, Wi-Fi here. So, Mommy Adebisi, what can we do to make sure they don't join the bad gang on the internet or social media, since we are unable to speak with them all day? God bless you.
Okay, so do you want me to answer one after the other, or we take all the questions and I answer them?
Yes.
Edu?
Okay, I think we should answer one after the other, so we don't miss anyone out.
Okay, so thank you, Stella Ogumakiwa. Thanks for that question. It's really, it's a relatable one. It's important because the world we live in now, I mean, our children are just a click away from information that can be very detrimental to their health and to their well-being. And we all know what is going on the web now. It's so much of negative things going on, and these things can impact them negatively. And then again, of course, because of the pandemic, children are not as active as they ordinarily would have been. So, and we know they say the devil, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So having so much time on their hands could also, bring up the temptation of wanting to get busy by visiting sites that are detrimental to their well-being. So two or three major things that I would like to highlight to this particular question. Number one, you see, so the job of controlling what they see, what they watch, sites they visit, should not start now. It's something that should have started a long time ago. So you should have had conversations. I mean, depending on the age of the children you are concerned about, there are age-appropriate conversations that we should have with our children about the ills of all these sites that promote pornography and all sorts of evils that are going on in our world today. So what I advocate is that you need to you need to be able to get your children to confide in you, to trust you enough to discuss with them, to discuss with you their struggles. When a friend is introducing something to them, what should come to their mind is, I'm going to ask mom about this. I'm going to discuss this with my mom. But sometimes what we do is because of the fears we have. When they mention something, we show fear. You just overreact. Hey, where did you find this? Who said that? And so when they hear things, or when they are being, I don't want to use the word lured, they won't be able to tell you, because they know that you will overreact, you will shout. Like my daughter will say to me, Mommy, this one we want to talk about. I mean, no, I mean, promise me you won't go to school, to my school. You won't do the, I mean, you won't report this to my school. But she tells me the things going on, you know. And there was a time she told me one, and I said, look, even though I promised, but I think I had to make her realize that, look, this one is not healthy not to speak about. It would be irresponsible to notice this and not say anything about it. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to be their confidant. They need to be able to tell you the challenges and the pressures that they are having. That way you will be able, my son will come to me at times and say, Mommy, this is not mommy talk. He said, don't advise me as mommy. Let us analyze this thing together. And so I take off my mommy cap, I put it aside, and I gist with him as a friend. And at times he's asking for advice for his own friends. And he said, Mommy, this is not mommy talk. You are not my mommy now. Let us discuss this gist. So we need to build a relationship with our children, and you start from scratch. You know, the last, if you don't mind, you can ask for the recording of the last session I had when we were talking about building emotional intimacy, you know, building emotional bonds with our children. That is the way you get them to be able to confide in you. They are your friends. And then when you notice that they're doing things that will not be in their interest at the end of the day, you're able to call them, not, you know, shouting, punishing, and, you know, threatening. You're able to sit them down to say, look, this will not help. I noticed this. I saw this. There was a time I saw some things on the phone. I looked through my child's phone. I found some things, and I sat him down. But I first apologized for looking through his phone because he was an adult then. So I said, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Curiosity got the better side of me. I apologized. We now discussed the things that I felt we needed to discuss, going by the things I saw. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So you need to don't be overly dramatic. Don't threaten. Sit them down. You see, when they get to a certain age, you need to be able to reason with them. So you are not just handing down rules. You are reasoning with them. You are letting them realize the downside to these things. You are giving them practical examples of how this same situation has destroyed some other people. And you are saying to them, I trust you. I know you will not go this way. I know God will help you. And let them put that weight of responsibility on them. Let them be able to say, mommy expects more from me. I can't afford. Please excuse me. I need to let my people here know that I'm sorry for the interference from my end. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to get them to that place where they can square up with you. When even if you see something that they shouldn't have done, you are not losing your cool over it. You are discussing it with them. You are discussing it calmly and letting them realize this can destroy all the investments that are being made into their lives. So it's an ongoing conversation. It's not something you do once and for all. And tell them, I trust you, I believe in you, you are responsible. Affirm them so they feel a need to live up to that picture of them that you're already painting. And then if they are really, really children, please excuse me, I'm sorry. And then if they are really, really, if they are children, you also need to let them know. There are some sites, there are some filters, exactly. There are some filters you can put. I don't know if the schools abroad, allow such, but there are some filters you can put. There are some things you can do to the gadgets There are some programs you can install on the gadget that there are some sites they won't be able to go to. Because when they are children, they are not able to decide what they want to see or what they don't want to see. And at times these things pop, they just pop up like that. So there's also a lot you can do in that regard. Thank you.
So much, Mommy. God bless you.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you. Stella, I hope you're okay with that. Thank you very much. Okay, so there is a question in the chat room. It says, can discipline be too much? Let's see, let me see exactly what the question was. Say, can I over-discipline? Can discipline be too much? That was the question. Can someone over-discipline?
Yes, discipline can be counterproductive. And we tend to over-discipline around here. You kill an ant with a sledgehammer. And what happens is that what we do when we claim to be disciplining is that we're punishing. And you are visiting on that child your frustrations with other things that are not related to what the child did. So maybe the child did not do his own work. And in disciplining that child, what you are doing is all your frustration with the government and the economy, the one your boss did, the one your husband's misbehavior, you pile everything together and inflict that child. And then you say you are disciplining. That's not discipline. Discipline is different from punishment. So when you are trying to discipline, number one thing, the child must understand that what he has done is wrong and unacceptable. Meaning that you must have laid the ground rules. The child must know that, look, I was told this, we agreed this. And in laying ground rules, it is good, it is better when they are when it's collectively agreed, when it's not just you handing down the laws. When we are all in agreement that, okay, because we have all agreed that in this family, we are great achievers. Because we all know that you, my son, you, my daughter, maybe you ask him, what do you want to be in life? They may tell you he wants to be a fireman. Don't worry. Don't worry. He said he wants to be a fireman. You are all in agreement that he wants to be at that point in time, that's what he wants to be. So you need to agree with him. So you let know that because we have all agreed that you are going to be a fantastic fireman. Give him all the fireman Sam and all the ones they seal, you are going to be better than fireman Sam. You are going to, and all that. There are things you need to do to become this wonderful individual. One of it is that your homework needs to be done so that your academics are okay. And because this needs to happen, maybe you have a particular schedule. When you come back from school, you eat your lunch. After lunch, maybe you have a siesta, then you do your homework, whatever order you have agreed. Now let that child know that there are consequences for not doing what has been agreed. Let the punishment also be communicated. That if you don't do this, then this will happen. Maybe you don't get to watch your favorite TV program. Maybe you are not taken along when next there's a trip to grandma's place. I know grandma's place is where all the fantastic things happen. Just something that you are depriving that child of. It must be agreed. So it is not just because you are in a bad mood, you are in a lousy mood. The child did something yesterday, you didn't correct him. You didn't tell him it wasn't as acceptable. You didn't even raise an eyebrow. The next day he does it and you are ready to kill him. And the child is going to be confused. So discipline is applying the right, what do I use now? Penalty, so to speak, to, an offense that has been committed. So over-disciplining is when you inflict punishment instead of putting that child right. And we do it a lot, and it is bad. When you do that, you stir up bitterness in that child. You get the child exasperated, and the child is already taking some decisions without you knowing. And it can be very, very dangerous, because that child is by himself or herself deciding, okay, so she hates me, I'm not wanted. I mean, if she had a chance, she will kill me. I'm her major problem. I'm not wanted in this family, because what you have inflicted on that child is much more than the offense. And they know it when you are visiting your frustrations on them. So we have to be careful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Okay, so there's just one question now. Someone is asking, we talked about friends, the influence that friends can have on the child. So if you find out that let me see, if you find out that the friends of the child do not have the same values with what you are teaching the child, should you stop the child from playing with those children, or how should you handle that kind of situation?
Okay, so it's also, so we should be asking ourselves, how do your children pick their friends? And then again, we know that there are different levels of friendship. You as a parent, you are the filter through which a lot of these things are determined. Number one, there are some friendships you can't do anything about. The child is in school. Of course, he would make friends with students that are in school. And that would be maybe Monday to Friday, they say in school, and the school is there to regulate the kind of things they do anyway. But when you talk about a friendship that is endorsed by the family, by the parents, there is what we call family friends, where the parents are friends and the children are also friends, that you have a measure of control over, because the way these children are being brought up, you can see what they are up to, and whether or not you want such for your own children. So if you don't, then you don't bring them within close proximity. Then you don't send your children out for sleepover in such places. Then you don't hang out with them. You don't go on vacations together, because you can see that there would be that tendency for your children to be negatively influenced by these children. And then if you observe that even while they're in school, they say some words, they talk about things, and they tell you this person, said it, that person said it. You have a right to visit the school and to tell them you have observed this, and you want to limit contact. Number one, for the school to be able to put that other child right, or maybe put the parents on notice, work with them for the good of that child. You also have a right to limit the contacts. You can even ask that your child is put in another arm if it gets to that point, because you have that responsibility to your own children. At that age, at that point, they can't protect themselves. They rely on you to be vigilant enough to be able to shield them from some relationships. There's a particular boy that used to come over wanting to play with our son when he was much younger. But from what I saw of the child, from what I saw from a distance, I wasn't even close to the parents, but I felt like, they left him too much to himself. He was always on the streets, and that was funny for the environment in which we lived. Whenever he came banging on our gate, I would always tell him he's not available to play. And over time, that child realized we really did not want him, around our place or around our children. But some years ago, funny enough, we were home, our son was home, when he was picked for some criminal stuff. And I just said it to myself. I knew that something was not just quite right with the way the child was being brought up, and I didn't want him mixing with with our own son. So it's your responsibility to shield your child at a certain age. A time will come when they'll be able to pick their friends by themselves, but by then they would have been able to teach them the values. And the tendency is that they will go for people who align with the values that they already have. And that's why some people will say, oh, no, I can't be friends with her. Because for whatever reason, that child already knows we can't gel, we're not likely to be able to cope together because there's already a mismatch. And the child by herself or by himself already knows it. So he won't even pursue a relationship or, a friendship with somebody like that.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so the last question we'll be taking for today is from, we have it in the chat room. One of our parents lives in North America, and he says that it's becoming even more difficult due to the legislations, human rights, the conversations in government schools are almost out of our hands as parents. But we know that these things are not allowed where we come from. And we honestly don't want our kids to be confused about whom they are. Can you advise how we can do better in molding our kids, regardless of what the law or society says?
Beautiful. Thank you. And I sympathize with, those of us who live in countries where, yes, a lot of these things you are not able to influence by yourself. And the negative effects at times can be terrible on children who don't have the support, the support from the home front or parents that are aware and are conscious of these things and are working behind the scenes to make sure that they are stable regardless of the instabilities that are within the society in which they live. So on Mothering Sunday, I spoke with a school invited me, a group of schools, 4 schools, invited me to speak with the mothers on a mother's influence. A mother's influence. If I get the recording, I'll send it to Ediri in the course of the week. And sorry, I'm going biblical now because that's the model I used for that session. The model I used for that session was a woman called Jochebed in the Bible, the mother of Moses. And for those of us who are not Christians, it's maybe I should quickly explain that Moses was born to parents who were slaves in Egypt. That's the biblical account. They were slaves, they were Israelites, but at that point in time, they were slaves in Egypt. And the king had legislated that every male child born should be thrown into the Nile, into the river. But there was this particular family that decided, the woman gave birth to her son, and we were told that she saw that, oh, this child is good, this child is beautiful, and she didn't give the child over to be thrown into the Nile. She hid that baby for 3 months. And when the time came and she was unable to hide the baby further, she made a basket and put that baby in that basket. Laid that basket with coal tar, bitumen and all that, and placed the baby in that basket and took that baby to a particular river where she knew the princess frequented for her bath. And so the princess saw the baby and adopted the baby. And this baby's sister went to the princess to say, do you need somebody to nurse this child for you? And she said yes. And so the sister went to call the mom, the baby's actual mom. And the princess gave the baby to the mom, not knowing she was the mom, of course, and said, you just, care for him, breastfeed him. When he's weaned, you bring him back to me. And she was even paying her for doing that. Okay, I needed to give us that background for you to understand the things I'm going to say next. When you're in an environment that is hostile, then what it means is that you as an individual, you need to be up to speed with your game. it means you are the more or less, quote and unquote, the last line of defense. And you need to be alive to your responsibilities. And the question I asked was, years down the line, even though this boy, Moses, was raised in the palace because the mother took her back to the princess, and he was raised as a prince in the palace, he knew that he was not an Egyptian. Because I believe strongly that within the time the mother had this child, she built him so much within him. She made him aware of his identity. She infused him with the vision that, had been battered in her heart about his purpose, his assignment, and he was so sure of who he was. And in spite of the fact that his people were slaves, he preferred to identify with that slavery than the posh life and the comforts that was available in the palace. What makes a child do that? The influence of a mother. So as mothers and as fathers too, we're very, very influential. The bond we create, we build with our children. See, it gets to a time in a child's life when that child is saying, I won't do this because I don't want to hurt mommy. It's because there's a bond. When a child is saying, oh, this will break daddy's heart, I won't, because of the bond. Because you see, I pointed out a few things. I said, we were told that the woman saw that the child was a beautiful child. Which baby is not beautiful? She saw beyond the physical. There's no baby that is not beautiful. But she saw beyond the physical. She saw a destiny. She saw a life of impact. She saw the future in that baby. So I ask mothers, I ask fathers, what do you see about your own children? It's what you see that will determine the sacrifices that they are willing to make for them. And because of what she saw, for 3 good months, how do you keep a baby hidden for 3 months? I believe strongly she hid herself when she was pregnant. So the soldiers could not even mark her as being pregnant and be watching out for when she would deliver to know whether her baby was to be thrown into the Nile, if it was a son, or to be kept alive if it was a daughter. So maybe she hid herself the entire 9 months. And hid herself with the baby. Maybe for the whole of those 3 months, the baby was permanently breastfeeding to keep him from crying. I mean, you know the way babies cry now. How did she keep that baby for 3 good months? That must have been inconveniencing. What inconveniences are we suffering for our children? What are we giving up to make sure we have a future? What sacrifices are we making for them? I'm saying this because, you see, especially for the person that asked this question, when you're in an environment that is hostile, then you need to do much more. And I'm glad you are here. You need to do much more. You need to read up. You need to develop a bond. Let your children know that, hey, we're in this country, but all these things they're teaching you people, it's not, I mean, those values are not the ones that we're supposed to live by. When our children travel to study, we sit them down. We tell them, my husband told me that when the eldest was going into uni and he went with him, he said at a point he asked himself, are we not making a mistake? Because with the welcome pack for the uni, there were condoms inside the pack. Everything was, I mean, people were coming in and out with alcohol, and he was asking himself, hey, have we made a mistake? A 17-year-old son. But then he said he remembered that voice came to him that you have put enough in him. All you have taught him, this is a time for him to make his choices. And if you did a good job, he will choose right. So the work should not start when the issues start cropping up. Your work as a mother, as a father starts way before, long before, rather. Because that is when you are building trust. They are able to trust you. You are establishing love. They know you love them. And when that is not in doubt, they are able to take your words. They are able to reason with you. You've sorted out your own issues, and that is important because as parents at times we have our own issues and we project those issues on our children without knowing. You visit your frustrations on them without knowing. So for some of us, we need to clear the baggage. You need to weed, clear the ground so you can really start planting. And I can go on and on. Sorry, it's just a question, but it's something I'm passionate about. But there's a lot that needs to be done. And you need to start early. You need to imbibe that sense of identity in them. So even though they know this is what we are being taught, they know the right thing. Thank you. I don't want to.
Thank you so much, Ma. So another question just dropped, even though we are pressed for time, we need to close now. But we can just take this quickly in like 1 minute or so. So how late is late to start molding a child? How late is late to start molding a child?
Okay, so I don't want to legislate, but you see, they say between age 1 and age 7 is the best time to pour into a child and to mold that child, between age 1 to age 7. But then again, I say it's never too late. They say when you wake up is your morning. So if you did not know these things before, it's not as if all hope is lost. No, make up for lost time. So for some of us, and that's what I was trying to say the other time, that for some of us, we need to clear off all the yama that we had, and that may be by just squaring up with that child and saying, look, I didn't know better then. And if I've injured you, if I've hurt you, when I thought I was molding you and parenting you right, I'm sorry. There are times we need to apologize to our children. I've had to do that. I'm sorry. I mean, there was a time they all made me realize that, look, Mom, no matter what we've done right, it is that thing that we've not done right that you hammer on. That would have done our homework, would have done. Once you enter the kitchen and the kitchen is messed up, it's like everybody's happiness must be messed up that day. And I looked within and I saw that it was true. That look, these children, they're good children by and large. But I mean, maybe I was controlling, I just wanted things done in a certain way. And it's like, okay, they didn't do one thing right. Do you know how many things you are not doing right? If God decides to make your life miserable by reason of the things you are not doing right, how will it be? So we first need to, set the tone of our relationships right. And then make up for whatever, get the right knowledge. Come to, webinars like this. Buy books. My 2 books are beautiful books. They touch on parenting, they touch on. Buy them, read up, ask questions. Buy other books. And then you would add to the knowledge you already have, and then you know how to handle these things when they come up. But it's never too late. When you wake up, it's your morning. God helping you, you would cover lost ground, and those children will still turn out right by God's grace.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. I'm sure our parents, we have heard a lot today, and it's been so impactful, so insightful. In fact, I don't know how to describe it like that. Thank you, Ma. Parents will make the previous recordings available to you, to everyone, especially that one on building emotional connection with your children. We would send, and every other recording that we had in the past, we send to every parent that is here today. Thank you so much, parents, and that's how much we can take. I think we've taken all the questions in the chat room. Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much, Ma. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. God bless you, Ma. And thank you to our parents. We'll have another webinar at the end of the month A parent asked if we would inform parents. Yes, we'll send emails, we'll let you know when the next webinar. Usually it's the last Saturday of every month, but we'll send emails and we'll send notifications out to parents. I will display Mrs. Adebayo's books shortly so we can see them and see how to get them. Please, let's get these books, and like she has said, we need to keep learning and keep adding to our knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you, parents. And today's webinar, God bless everyone of us, and God help us as parents and children. God bless everyone. Have a wonderful weekends, remaining parts of your weekend. Thank you.
Hello.
So I'm displaying Mrs. Adebayo's book, check the details, how to get the books. Please, let's get the books. Thank you, parents. Bye. And then you can reach out to us at any time.